Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode with your boys, the Papertrails podcast. I'm Shamaki, joined by my co-host, Mohammed. And today we've got another special episode. We are going to be talking about the ground roots, the fine compost of the genre that we truly care about, which is fantasy. Now, before we truly get into it, I wanted to kind of put it on a little caveat of...
You what? Say that again?
A caveat.
Okay. But that's something else.
No. Well, caveat. I had a few of those. No, of what fantasy means, firstly, to me. I don't know if you'd like to give a few words on fantasy. But fantasy, I feel like now has got a lot of disrespect. You know, I feel like this name is being tarnished, especially by, I'll say the guys. Especially in a lot of it in our community, from what I've heard. Yeah. You know, a lot of the brothers ain't trying to be reading no fantasy. Yeah. When you tell them about fantasy,
or even watching,
when you tell them about fantasy, you mean that dragon stuff, all that fairies and wizards and all this dwarves. Nonsense. That's what you want me to read now.
I already see all of that in Halsden.
That's what I'm saying. But they're like, we're tired of that. We're trying to read the 8th self-help book of the week. You know what I mean? I'm like, you need fantasy. And the reason why you need fantasy is because sometimes you need that level of escapism that you can't find elsewhere. Obviously, escapism isn't the only reason why people like fantasy. It's about stories, about all these other kind of stuff. But it's about a whole journey in which takes place in a whole different world that you can put yourself in for a moment of time, you know? And I feel like people undervalue that point. They undervalue that level of escapism, and they feel like, but how's it going to help me? And then in that world, there's so many benefits and so many different ways that it does help. And that's what we'll be hopefully trying to cover today in this episode, as well as talking about the history of it, how it came to be. Because before it wasn't known as fantasy, which is a genre that I guess makes it easier for everyone now to know what we're talking about. But before that, it was just folktales and stuff like that, and things that people would sit around communities and talk about. And
before you really get into it, you know, something that irks me a lot. What? It really triggers the villain in my mind.
Let it out.
Yeah.
Still in the villain boat.
You ever, of course, it's been here all year.
Yeah.
You ever talk to someone like, oh, do you read much? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And then I'm like, so what about you? You got any books to recommend?
Yeah.
All they're saying, 50 laws of power. How to win friends and influence people. Yeah. How to manipulate people. I'm like, bloody hell, mate. Yeah. Give us, do something a bit different about it. Like, how many of those books do you think?
Source about it.
How many of those books do you think they read it yet?
Too many.
I hate a guy like, read
and how
them a
many
week.
of those are they going to actually take on board? Do you know what I mean? There's only so much you can hear the same thing in a different tone.
Yeah, so I'm saying to these guys, that this is all you read, mate. Gather around the campfire. Around the warm campfire with the boys, and hear a few stories from us.
Absolutely.
You're gonna enjoy it, you're gonna love it.
That's what it's about.
It's gonna inspire you, as we say.
Right.
Here at Inspyre.
Well said, mate. Well said. Round of applause for that.
Over to you, studio.
No, but yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I mean, if you're sitting around a campfire, you don't want to be hearing 50 laws of power. Rule number 1.
Man, you as a caveman.
That's what I was saying. Like, it's ridiculous, bro. If you want to hear about the fancy stuff, you want to hear about, you know, all that good stuff. Some people don't hear about romance. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want to get into that bag. And I feel like...
You?
Potentially, you know? Maybe one day.
Yeah.
But me, I just like more...
Foreshadowing,
I just like more of the quest kind of stuff. You know what I mean? A journey is what I like. And you can't get a journey with... You got to wake up at 6 a.m. and flipping, you know what I mean? Yabba, all that stuff.
Some people's journey.
It's some people's journey.
Their journey's Canary Wharf.
Your journey is everybody else's journey. You know what I mean? There's nothing unique about you. There's no chosen one element. But yeah, so with that little caveat.
One more thing, just another.
Go on.
Sorry.
Hit us.
So like, imagine the kids are like, oh, Daddy, tell us stories, yeah. And they're like, oh, you're gonna have to wake up at 6 a.m.
You're gonna have to wake up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Water fast.
Goodness me.
What else?
At 12 o'clock, you gotta start influencing people. That's how you win them over. You know what I mean?
Oh man, like,
ridiculous.
Listen to some fiction, so you have some stories to tell to your grandchildren one day, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna get into the history of it.
Damn right.
How it came about.
So fantasy, or I guess kind of what we know as fantasy, is early roots, like I kind of touched up upon, was like folklore, fairy tales, stuff like that. That what they call the old maiden tales, something like that. That's what I heard in Game of Thrones, apparently.
Yeah, okay.
And so yeah, that's how it kind of was. You know what I mean? Like stories that parents would tell their children, this and that. Somalis, we have quite a few. I think it's called, the whole genre of it's called like mahma or something like that.
Yeah.
We should try probably read a couple of those.
I was thinking about that during while I was reading up on this whole topic.
Yeah. Touch up on a couple of them.
I was reading about the languages that fiction's written in as well, and I thought, how come we never hear much about fiction from Africa, from Asia,
and
South
like
America?
Their style of fiction is completely different to like the style of fiction in the West.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess the research that I was doing was, I guess, is more Western orientated, because there's a lot more information, I guess, about that out there. We can look into, I guess, Asian cultures, African cultures, of how they basically came about with their fictional stories. But yeah, like I was saying, the early starts was fairy tales and all that kind of, juicy stuff that kids could, something imaginative that kids could wrap around. And then mostly they just had morals at the end of it. It wasn't necessarily like just here's the story.
A lot of the time it was like warning kids about the juju man.
Yeah, stuff like that in so many
Boogeyman.
different ways. If it's Hansel and Gretel, if it's this other kind of stuff, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, if you, I don't know, misbehave to your parents, you're going to lose like 6 teeth because there was this kid who was misbehaving, and he'll have a name, and then it's like, oh, you don't end up like this guy, you know what I mean? But I find it kind of interesting. It's kind of like, I was looking into it, that stories and stuff like that, the effect that they have on us is way more than any other like educational thing that there is. Everything can firstly be a lot more memorable if it's told in a story form. Everything can be digested a lot easier if it's in a story form. And kids pick up on stories way quicker than any of the other stuff that they basically can learn, especially if it's like a nursery rhyme. A lot of the stuff weren't like little rhyming stuff. Like even I think it was Huberman. That's my friend, Andrew Huberman. Just name dropped a friend as old government. So he was basically talking about like even how kids are taught the alphabet, which is like A, B, C, D, E. Like it's almost like it's a story. Like it starts with A and ends with Z.
Yeah.
And that in itself is basically, I guess, the story of the alphabet. Actually, now I say this, I don't know if it was him that said it. It might have been somebody else that said it. It was another bald guy, but hey,
one of the wise bold men.
One of those guys, one of the
three wise bold men.
Yeah, and then as people, I guess, kind of evolved, then they started getting a bit more into it, and then started coming about all the mythology stuff, where people started associating the stories to actual people, to things, to scenarios, to places. You had the Greek stuff, the Roman stuff, the Norse stuff, which was actually kind of crazy because of the level that it pushed their culture. And it's the same thing that's happening now. I guess why America is seen so cool is because you've got Spider-Man in New York City.
Yeah.
And it's like such a cool character in a real tangible place. You know what I mean? So people are like this, wow, it must really be happening in New York City. And like when you see like certain iconic buildings and then you go to New York, you're like, oh, Spider-Man's like kind of swung by this place. And then you contrast that to back in the day where they'll build like statue of their heroes and all this other kind of stuff. And Olympus and all that stuff, and in Greece and in Athens. And then when the stories come out, people are like, oh, I've got to go to Athens. That's where it's kicking off. And there is no video footage, so they don't know if it's actually kicking off or not. Like some people genuinely believe that things are happening like that.
Migrate there for that.
Do you know what I mean? Like Hercules walking around the gap.
Yeah.
But like the way they would describe it was as if he was there. Like the same paths that he would walk down are like actual roads and places that people can go to. So then they'll be like, okay, wow. And as they were pushing their story and narrative, it made them the cultural hub Because let's say if you wanted to make your place the massive place, you just have people telling stories about it.
Yeah.
Oh, like London, and look how amazing Freedom Barnet is, and this guy came from there. And naturally what it will do is people will pick up on the stories and be like, oh, I want to visit it. And they'll be like, oh, the Freedom Barnet Library, that's where so-and-so had that fight, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is, I guess, what Hollywood is essentially doing now, but on a massive scale.
Then you've got like the ancient Egyptians as well, like the pyramids is all built around the mythology of all their gods and all that,
and stuff like that. And like the final point is, that's why they have it like based up against the stars, because they feel like they used to say that the pharaoh would then become a star,
transcend and all that.
Yeah, so then they'll build up the story to the point, and then they'll be like, this is the star, and all of that kind of stuff.
That's what they say.
Huh?
That's what they say.
That's what they say. You know, where it started to get a bit spicy and more, I would say, narrower in terms of storytelling, was when the Arthurian legends started forming around. Now, you know, the funniest thing was, when I was doing the little research into the whole Arthur thing, do you know how it came about?
Nah.
So it was so random. So basically there was this old Welsh poem, right?
Okay.
About, I think it was, it's not that one, but I forgot. It's a proper like Welsh thing.
Yeah.
And there was this guy that is the whole poem is based up on. And it's like, he was so chivalrous, he was so like strong, and he
was the
beat
guy.
so many people. He was the guy.
Yeah.
But he was no Arthur.
Right.
And just there was that small little part at the end, but he
no
was no Arthur.
Damn.
That historians were like, "Bond, this guy, who the hell is Arthur?" You know what I mean? So it's like, for example, let's say nobody knew of like Messi.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll say Ronaldo's a better.
People say Ronaldo, yeah.
This and that, 900 goals, this and that.
Left foot, right foot.
He wasn't no Messi.
No Messi.
And everyone's like, wait, who the hell is Messi?
Ronaldo.
How? Yeah. You know what I mean? So historians left bloody this guy alone.
Yeah.
And then they started looking into Arthur.
You don't remember his name?
I know,
Damn,
I mean, his name's out there, but I don't know his name. Who gives a damn about his name? You know what I mean? But then, so then afterwards, but nobody really knew who he was. Some people like, was he a king? Was he this? Was he that? So the whole Arthur story of a kid picking up a sword from all of that was later on built up. But all of it is just fantasy. It's the first fan fiction that was kind of like written. It was all these historians having a Wattpad moment where they were just like, let's just write anything about this guy. It runs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So
people were writing poems with their chests about this guy.
Yeah.
And he might not have been all of that. You know what I mean? He might have just been like pretty good. He might have just been somebody that the guy writing was just glazing at the time.
My question is, okay, cool. So if there's multiple people that are like just like building up on this waffle on this guy, and then like how did it come about that like, all these Knights of the Round Table and all this stuff? Like how did that all become consistent?
So it came about by, I forgot his name, but there was one guy that wrote Le Mort d'Arthur, something like that.
The Death of Arthur.
Huh?
The Death of
Something
Arthur.
like that, yeah. But I've absolutely butchered it.
Yeah.
And then he was starting to basically build up the stone thing and all of that kind of stuff, and the Knights around. They basically made it more into a story form, because before that it was just a lot of like poetry and like showing the chivalry. Oh, you Arthur, you this.
The original poet who wrote that original poem, like what were they cooking?
What were they cooking? Yeah.
He just randomly said, "He ain't no Arthur."
But he ain't no Arthur. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not a rapper.
As he was writing, Arthur probably just walked by.
What if he was Arthur?
Huh?
What if he was Arthur?
Nah. I know Arthur wasn't writing. You know, what I mean? The strong guys never wrote back then. You know what I mean? They weren't sitting around podcasts doing books. They were out doing wars. They were doing the real stuff. But he must have been writing, you know, on a nice, cool breeze.
Yeah.
Just looking
Under
outside
tree,
the window. And Arthur's just down there, putting in the sweat, working on his craft. Probably just took off his helmet, wished his hair about, and he was like, yeah, he's not this guy. This is the guy right here. So if Arthur ever found out that he had that level of clout, if not, you know what I mean, it's all to remain. But yeah, so then after that kind of the whole Arthur thing started happening, when more historians and stuff like that were writing about it, the idea and the concept of the Chosen One, i.e. the stuff that we see in Aragorn, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, all the ones where like there's a kid that's unknown and he becomes like the guy,
main character
the
syndrome.
world. Yeah, Anakin is another one. all of that kind of stuff started, from that kind of thing. And then later on, obviously, they brought about all the knights and chivalry around, especially around the Middle Ages. Because around that time, like I said, men were out here fighting wars and stuff, and the greatest thing you could do after a war is get a poem about you.
Yeah.
Because, everywhere you'll go and they're singing about you, singing their praises. They'll be like, this 30 guys were on Mo and he just turned around and chopped their heads off. You'd be like, yeah, run it back, Turbo.
I just be like imagine you walk back into your city after you won a heavy victory.
Yeah.
Like people just chanting your name.
Chanting your name, the bards.
Like football chants. That's how I'm imagining it.
Yeah, come on. Spotify streams going everywhere. And those poems are being dished out. So people are reading it to the kids, this and that. So your legend will precede you eventually. So obviously, people love that. They love to go to war and have a great game and then come back to be able to this is what man's up here doing. You know what I mean? So then, poetry at that point was going crazy. Towards those times, obviously Shakespeare out here was killing it, having a great run.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Some people argue he wasn't writing.
Yeah, I was heard he had the ghostwriter. Who gives it that? You know what I mean? It's too old, to be caring about a ghostwriter.
And I think too consistent as well. There's too many stories written.
This guy's writing plays, sonnets back to back. Every second he was just cooking something. You know what I mean?
What would be your favorite Shakespeare story? You got put on the spot.
That's it's between probably either Hamlet or Romeo
R&J,
and Juliet.
Yeah. It's gotta be R&J just for the nonsense that was in the book.
That was
Romeo and Juliet is the nonsense. They ended up poisoning each other all at the end.
But for two different families.
Yeah, beefing and all this.
You know what I mean? I think he came up with that phrase.
The OG romantic story.
Yeah, the OG Bonnie and Clyde. So now at this point in the Middle Ages, people were combining all of this stuff together. All of the chivalry, all of the mythology, all of the chosen one aspect, all of this kind of different stuff. They were just combining it and I guess making it into more of a formatted kind of stuff, a story that goes from beginning to end.
Yeah,
linear kind of stories. And then obviously you had stuff like even Macbeth and all of the witches and stuff like that. Because obviously after the Arthurian thing, I forgot they were bringing about that whole wizardry stuff.
Merlin.
Of Merlin, dragons.
That's when they really started cooking. Who was the first guy that said, you'll find dragons out here, man?
Find dragons. Yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, dragons have been something that's been known for a minute.
That's one thing I don't know. The origin of that.
You know what's so crazy about it? I was listening to the Rest is History podcast, and they were doing the history of dragons.
Okay.
And the craziest thing is they were in history, people were talking about dragons and all depicting dragons. And this is obviously before the internet.
Yeah.
But they would all describe dragons the same way.
Yeah.
It's never changed, lizardy kind of things.
You got
the
the
only
Chinese
thing that would
ones.
change is if some had wings, if some didn't. But a lot of the same thing was kind of the sort of that snake-looking body with the the proper dragon face and all that kind of stuff. And they were it was a bit too consistent among history. That
I feel like maybe it was dinosaurs, there was some kind of
it's just a massive creature that they probably saw or something. Yeah. Who knows what they were seeing? I'm glad we're not seeing none of that stuff.
Maybe me,
the
man. I'll be jumping off a skyscraper
dragon
trying
with
to
the wings.
Yeah.
Kind of how we know it.
Yeah.
I think that was also kind of done by Tolkien.
Yeah. He had different types in his one as well.
Yeah, different types. Yeah.
With drink wings.
But a lot of the time, a lot of them didn't even just have wings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were just out here, bro.
I know they felt insignificant to the ones that had wings.
Yeah, that's what I'm
These
saying.
guys flying around.
As far as I always knew them to have wings.
Yeah, you might as well be a gecko. Just that giant gecko.
That's what I'm saying. And then some of them didn't breathe fire.
Yeah. Imagine that. Man. This guy breathing fire.
What are you good for?
Would you believe this?
You ain't got wings. You can't breathe fire.
Mother's boy.
Useless guy, bro.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing. But yeah, so like fantasy at that point, like I said, he was bringing in the witches, he was bringing in all this kind of good old juicy stuff. And again, that was like the craze at the time. You know what I mean? Nobody was out here doing self-help books.
Yeah.
Hey, where's my self-help book guys now?
To be fair, there was the whole philosophy guys.
Yeah, but that's what is that.
I wonder, like, how did they mold together? There's guys talking about Zeus and all this, and there's other guy talking about to be or not to be and all that. Yeah. Like, how did they interact? And I think that would have been interesting.
A lot of that stuff at that point, the whole Greek kind of like literature thing wasn't
Stoicism and all that.
It was becoming like historic at that point, especially in the Middle Ages and whatnot.
But there was always philosophers throughout history.
Always, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The guys, that usual thing where they always just sit on a rock and they have to think. You know what I mean?
And like even with like the fiction writers, like they were great philosophers as well. Like when I saw that poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling, that really stuck with me.
The one that you showed me.
Yeah, I want to say, you guys, if you want a fire poem, you gotta read that "If" by Rudyard Kipling. Solid. I have to slap it up on the screen.
It must have been an old one, huh? If Michael Caine was telling his dad read it to him, I was like,
no, he's old. He's old.
You have a dad? You mean you were born?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. That's a solid one. But like one thing that I found it crazy was just kind of like how did the poems and all that stuff like just travel around the world so fast? You know, that's what it is. Like, especially around Europe.
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
What's going on? You know,
I feel like if you were born in that time, you would be stuck in your village, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Like I can't see a way around it unless I traveled.
Yeah.
Obviously, word would get around.
Yeah,
like somebody would come back. I've come from Constantinople and they've changed everything there, and there's so many things happening. You'd be like, damn, I want to go.
Imagine at that time, like you've never seen a boat, you've never seen like a car or anything.
Yeah.
Some random guy with a different skin color just comes to you, starts buffering some random language.
Yeah.
Like that would be unreal.
Nah, it would be. Well, they just dock up.
Yeah.
Coming over here. Yeah, but to be fair, it was a bit more civilized than that.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah,
I'm talking about real old
villages.
time. Yeah. Just imagine though.
Yeah, no, it's a whole wild thing to see. I think just going on a ship alone to then see a place like, because obviously right now if you book a holiday, you kind of know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And you
got pictures,
check it
stories.
out, pictures. So now not only that, they'll show you the hotel that you're staying at.
Yeah.
They'll show you stuff you could do, so you basically know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
But here, if somebody's like, yo, I got a ticket to Constantinople, and do you want to come? You don't know where in the world Constantinople is. Huh? You don't know dragons. You don't know Jack.
Yeah.
And then that it must be crazy, that first feeling of like seeing you on that boat, just getting closer to like the city walls and stuff like that. Like that feels like stuff that's like out of this world.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of broke boys out there.
Yeah.
Who didn't get the chance to escape from their natural habitats.
Yeah.
Which is where fantasy helped them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of them weren't out here going to Greece.
Yeah.
But they didn't mind reading a bit of Hercules.
Yeah.
And him doing all that kind of stuff. Nobody's trying to fight Chimera or Hydras and all that nonsense. But they wouldn't mind watching somebody else do it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it was. And like a lot of the stuff of like, if you didn't know how a city was, what a place was, if you're just hearing it's bumping over there, everybody is live. It's actions all over there.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep saying Constantinople. Let's just say Constantinople again.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just say you're just hearing nothing but that.
Yeah.
Then you hear like a book or a story from there, then you're reading that. It's kind of like how Paris grew in its whole thing of like romance, you know what I mean? The French guys were cooking in like the 17th century, you know what I mean? They were like absolutely
mate.
writing away, all sorts of stuff.
I haven't visited Paris to this day.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't been?
Have you?
Yeah.
When?
On the I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What are you doing there, lad?
Huh?
What are you doing there?
I was passing by.
Writing poems, eh?
I was passing by writing poems as I was walking. So then people were like, oh, Paris, a place of love. And that's happening over there. And this and that. It builds clout. Like I said, a lot of it was it's very tough to like build that sort of connection for a place if you just write it as a brochure of like, oh, you get a nice sea, you get a nice view, you should see the beach, it's amazing, it's like white sands and this and that. But then if somebody's telling you a story about that place or like something that's happened around that area, then it's like a whole different kind of ball game.
I believed it when David Beckham went there. So
Where?
PSG.
Oh, PSG.
Okay, yeah, that is the city of love.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, it's like that's what's kind of needed to. That's how a lot of people would. It would be a great source of tourism as well. You know what I mean? Like if you're writing great stuff from your city about your city, this and that, it's like it adds to it. I think also that's why Harry Potter kicked off so well, because she found the right opacity to blend in between real life and the fictional world. Because in her fantasy world, the only thing that's stopping you essentially from Hogwarts is that wall between platform 9 and 3/4. From
you talk about Narnia, the wardrobe in Narnia.
Or the wardrobe in Narnia. But I feel like that's a very specific wardrobe.
Yeah.
So every wardrobe.
It's only one person's yard.
Yeah. All right, straight into my wardrobe. But there was nothing there, man.
Oh,
but so like if you can go to King's Cross. King's Cross exists and it's right there. Or when she's talking about like how they go through Tottenham Court Road and stuff like that. And then I remember one time I was listening to the Audible and I was in Tottenham Court Road. And I was like, God damn it, they were right here. You know what I mean? But like
looking
that
at people
level of
different,
connection is what's wild, you know? And that's what makes the story seem more alive. And I was thinking as well, like if I was writing something, it would be nice to kind of do it like that. Kind of like fantasy, but in and around that area, which is, again, another little caveat, which is why Assassin's Creed obviously did so well. Because it was like, oh my gosh, I would love to see like
visiting
Jerusalem
historic
at
places.
that time or Baghdad at that time and whatnot. And then it throws you in there and then you're kind of seeing historical buildings. And then it's kind of the closest thing to, it's basically a glorified street view. Google Street View. That's what it is. But then beyond that, beyond the Middle Ages, you know, they started adding on the whole romance and princesses and stuff like that. Because before that, with the mythologies and Arthur and stuff, and a lot of it was about straight glory. You know what I mean? It was nothing short of glory. And that's what the guys
Imagine
got.
you're a peasant. In the medieval times, you're reading about Arthur.
And then it's like, oh, but it was a kid that could take the stone, and the kid wasn't a king beforehand, but that's how they discovered he is the king. You know, it's kind of again like Cinderella's like whole shoe thing. You know, so they would be like, damn, that could be me. Blah blah blah. That builds a bit more connection. And then again, winning glory was what men cared about back in the day. Then they started added on women. So then after glory, then winning the love of a woman became the next thing, the next big craze. You know what I mean? It wasn't money, it wasn't a big ass castle, it wasn't none of that. It wasn't people coming home ringing off your name when you've won a war. It was you get a princess or something. You know, it's something measly like that.
Wasn't that like when the fairy tales started becoming popular, like Rapunzel and all of these kind of things?
Those were like, I think a lot of them were like some German thing. The guy that started compiling them together.
Hans Christian Andersen or something.
Huh?
There's a guy called Hans Christian Andersen. I think he done a lot of like fairy tales.
I
forgot off the top of my head, but
And there was also one guy, I forgot his name, that was cooking. He used to basically write a lot of fables, like the
Brothers Grimm?
Golden Goose.
Okay.
What's it?
The Golden Goose classics.
Yeah, that one. To be fair, he had a lot of the classics. And then there was also a Chinese guy.
Do you think like you see how like we're waiting for like George R. R. Martin to like drop some new stuff? I think people were like, we're waiting for that. Hey, where's that new fable coming out, bro?
New fable, bro? I need a new story, man. But like, for example, but then there's also kind of crazy stuff like if you look at the Boy Who Cried Wolf, that's also a thing in Somali. They have their, I think it's Omar Ben or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I don't know how it spread around. Maybe we might have to look into that as well. Like how this stuff was cooking. Because there was also one guy from Asia that was like writing a lot that we know as typical stuff, but like was actually coming from there. That was then translated into so many different languages. But like that's the thing, I guess. It's like sometimes that's how the best stories are told again, like through story.
Do you ever think like how's like we mentioned Romeo and Juliet, like how was that received by the masses? Like just imagine that. Obviously, if it's a play as well.
Yeah, there's no like review channels.
Yeah,
you're going to YouTube afterwards.
But maybe there was newspapers probably.
There probably was for sure.
At that time anyway.
But it was probably word of mouth, crazy word of mouth. You know, that was going. I don't know if the printing press was ready at that time.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
But yeah, so like it was just crazy word of mouth, and people like, yo, I've just heard the craziest story right now, bro. They loved each other, but she was alive the whole time. He killed himself, and then she killed herself. Like, you know, they're going crazy. What did you feel like when you first saw Romeo and Juliet?
What
did the pangs of heartbreak get to you?
I was thinking, look at these fools, man. That time I was on my my glory vibe, you know.
The glory.
Oh man, I was trying to fight monsters in RuneScape, bro.
Listen, man, I had a different.
He said you started waxing lyrical immediately after.
I had to sit down, bro. Yeah. I had to sit down, brother. I was like, God, if only he waited a little bit, should have woken up. You know what I mean? And that's the sweet spot.
You learned some philosophy, yeah? Huh? You learned some philosophy, yeah?
Yeah, that right, man. That's what he wanted. He wanted you to feel that, like, oh, if it was that close, he would have seen her wake up, and then he would have known she's alive. You know what I mean? And then I was like, you know what, it is what it is. Yeah, things like this, they happen, bro.
Yeah, man. I was watching my dad coming home from a long day of work, and my mum making a nice fresh meal for him, and I said, that's true romance right there.
That's true romance there, yeah. You know what? That's a real talk.
Yeah.
That's a real talk, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's not about the glory.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes maybe the glory is in the home.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, glory is where you make it, but not for me. Can't be having that, bro. I want people ringing poems of me, bro, singing about me. That's what I want. Bloody hell. But then afterwards, it shifted more into that Gothic era as we're getting into like the late 1700s and 1800s and stuff like that, where people, especially one guy called Horace Walpole's, I've butchered his name, but he's dead, so it doesn't really. He's not here to correct me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is legacy.
Nah, joking, but so he wrote the Castle of Otranto.
Okay.
Which again is a classic that I feel like we should check out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, read a couple of these things that kicked off with stuff, and there's a lot of it was about supernaturals and these half-human people and like, you know, vampires and all this stuff, haunted homes and that genre started becoming a lot more sinister, and it started looking more. Before you could put it as like this, the color grading was, you could say, pink and bright before, you know, romance.
Even with the dragons?
Nice princess at the end, even with all that kind of stuff. When it's getting a bit more dark and sinister.
Black and white.
Black and white, noir.
Grainy.
Yeah, they were looking more into the humans, messing them lot up. And around the same time, Frankenstein as well was popping off.
I think it's interesting as well, like probably the advent of science becoming more popularized.
People for sure.
Experimenting and I guess I feel like the world getting to a point where like people that were ill getting thrown into like loony bins, as they say.
Yeah. At that point as well, you had bloody Madame Tussauds.
Yeah.
Around the French Revolution and stuff like that. Like she waited for the head of Mary Louise Antoinette, who got her head chopped off, and then ripped her face off and then put it as a...
What, legit?
Yeah, she was an actual person.
Damn.
Yeah.
She just made a wax figure?
Nah. She would make the wax figures from people's faces.
Have you seen House of Wax by any chance?
House of who?
House of Wax.
Nah.
There's a film back in like mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Bro, that was all one horror film that got me like,
was
damn.
About that stuff?
Like, basically that kind of stuff. Like, guy, obviously ruining the whole concept of it, but it's the horror of it that's really, a guy that's like, he's running a wax museum, but he's just langing people off.
Yeah.
That's how using them. Like just covering them in wax while they're still alive.
Nah. That's what I'm saying. That's what she was on. She was on that type of time around then. You know what I mean? Do you know how long it takes to finally carve somebody's face off? you know, without the muscle attached.
Yeah, damn.
And all that kind of stuff.
The thing is, like, there was practicing.
Do you feel like, and around that time,
there must
as
have
well,
been practicing
later in the
before that.
1800s, they were actually doing like live experiments of like operations and stuff like that for people to.
There's no paracetamol.
There's none of
There's
that.
no
Stuff.
local anesthetic.
Guy screaming in pain while someone's shouting over. And now we are
chill,
cutting
man.
into.
Just bunk him on the head one time.
Yeah. Now we're about to take his appendix out if he keeps quiet.
And if he keeps quiet, he's not a witch.
If he keeps quiet.
Oh man.
Yeah, to be fair, also,
Bro, I would have been branded as
witch burning stuff going on.
Yeah, I would have been branded as a witch one time, bro.
Yeah, nah, I would have been the one
would've seen
branding
you
you a witch.
They would be like, yo,
Just to see something happen.
I just saw Muhammad go to the woods and back 3 times within 5 minutes.
That's mate. If
I
the
was
week was too
man,
quiet,
I'm just bringing some wood to home for the fire,
that's what
man.
I'm saying. If the week was a bit too quiet for me, enough has happened.
Yeah, you would have had me on
I'd
that.
be like,
You'd have had me burning.
I'll be like, yo, man, that steak hasn't been used in a minute. We gotta get somebody on that.
Oh man.
Say, bro, what were you doing in the woods the other day? And you know what I was doing. I was bringing some wood. Damn right. That's what they all say.
That's why I'm talking to himself.
That's what they say. He's a witch.
Oh man.
Yeah, so they started getting all onto the whole more gothic era, more sinister, bringing it more so to life. And then I guess now it's what's it called? That there's a term in like even not photography. I think painting is like ultra realistic or something.
Ultra
realism, something like that, where they basically the painting just looks way too real.
Yeah.
And then they sort of subvert it just a little bit, where like it looks very real, but also very weird at the same time. I don't know if it's called surreal art or something, but
Yeah, it must be surrealism.
something like that.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of vibe that they were basically going for, which is like very close to real life. But then at the same time,
Give an example.
still having the fantasy, like Frankenstein. The fact that it was electricity on a lightning bolt or something like that brought. Obviously, Frankenstein was the doctor. Brought his monster to life.
Frankenstein monster.
Yeah. And all that kind of good jazz.
Alive.
The hell was that, brother?
I said it's alive.
Hey, it's the type of stuff that make you call you a witch. And then we get into the good old Victorian era. And then that's when people were kind of, I guess, the fantasies were becoming again back to like stuff that we knew, grew up in Alice in Wonderland. Around that time, people were having a great hand in crime. You know what I mean? Especially around London.
It was thriving,
dabbling around the crime.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Everywhere they would go, people were checking out clues and magnifying glasses, and detectives were going through it.
Do you think there was like a detective office like everywhere, like McDonald's?
Yeah, no, for sure. Just guys walking around like with their magnifying glass behind
They're
everyone's footsteps.
Yeah, there's like one detective there, and another guy's following him.
No one's say, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? You know, that's what everyone's asking each other. Yeah, and then you had then that's when like fantasy kind of changed as well. Then you have more the detective stuff.
Yeah.
More the clues, more like who's done this, blah,
Sherlock
blah.
Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, who was friends with Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
No, was that Agatha Christie? I wrote Poirot and stuff like that. Yeah. So they were boys. Funny enough,
Boys and
little
girls.
caveat about her.
Yeah.
She... Man, hey, you know, that her husband was seeking glory,
really?
I suppose.
Really?
So he basically like must have cheated on her or something.
Okay.
So this is just a bit of tea,
Yeah.
a bit of history, gossip.
Yeah. Another thing you'll find in fiction.
Yeah, and then so then she basically faked her own death.
God
She
damn.
done it in a way where nobody could find out.
God
So
damn.
she was doing her own clues. She was becoming her own heart.
Oh, she set up another story.
She set up another story, faked the death, and then and then even Arthur was trying to find her and stuff like that. And then she basically popped up again somewhere else up north.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not dead, but like this guy done me over. He done me too bad, bro.
Blood, yo, man.
But it never stopped her from cooking. You know,
Tell
she's
you what,
still
mate.
writing.
Inspired her.
Huh?
Tell you what, that cheating inspired her.
That
boy.
shit,
God
bro. To
damn.
fake your own death.
Damn.
Damn. You know what I
Do
mean?
you think you could fake your own death and get away with it?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like this is one of his deep desires. This guy,
Just for a date, for the plot. Do you know what I mean? I feel like if I didn't contact someone for like a month,
this guy's already setting up, man. I've been calling him like 9 times. Yo, we're trying to record. He's like, I might have to do it today.
Yeah, nah. Listen. You know what it is? Like, I feel like my response time is long enough that I feel like if I took a month out, that's when it doesn't even start. People are like, yeah, this is fine. Maybe in the 9th month that people are like, okay, he might be gone somewhere. You know?
Oh, mate, if you have kids one day on there, they're going to be like, tell you what, man.
Nah, I'm going to hide from my kids.
Dad, they'll be like,
depends.
5-minute delay.
Huh?
You'll really teach them patience, boy.
Nah. Those kids got to have the magnifying glasses out early. Trying to find me. And then, so then towards that time as well, towards the end of the Victorian era, they started getting more into the high fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when like the different realms wasn't just a different realm. It had its own ecosystem, it had its own history, they had their own like religions, they had their own sort of way of life, they had their own a lot of the stuff essentially that inspired Tolkien. And that's what it kind of was, and like and people kind of delving into that kind of stuff and being like, okay, wow, this is interesting. And stuff like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien as well, they were like proper Christians. And I forgot the guy's name, but one of the pioneers for this high fantasy was a Christian guy. And he was basically building a lot of like the worlds where essentially it was just based on good and evil, and like the morals and like their beliefs and their system and stuff like that.
Yeah, God and the devil.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And like you could even see it with like Tolkien and like how Gandalf is depicted and coming back from the dead and all this kind of stuff.
Sauron,
oh yeah. So then that leads us to the man himself, Tolkien. Mr. J.R.R. Tolkien, which right now I guess.
Do you know his full name? Or even his first name? I feel like it's a John.
Nah, it's not. It's a
really?
weird one. It's a weird. It's
Jacob Rees.
Jacob Rees.
I don't know.
What did you say it was?
John.
Yeah, it is a John. John Ronald Reuel.
What?
Tolkien.
What was the third one?
Reuel, something like that. Reuel.
Reuel. It must be like some French thing.
Rule. Oh, it's rule. They gave me the transliteration right here, and it's Tolkien.
Yeah.
Not even Tolkien. How dare you? How dare you disrespect the man, eh? What are you saying about disrespecting his legacy? Hey. Yeah. So Tolkien, basically has, I guess, is the guy that's kind of known as
Would
like
say
the
he's
man
the greatest.
shaped the fantasy world and this and that. Because he's basically, what he's also done, he's basically just lumped all of that in. Like, he's like, okay, what do you want? Great epic battles from the mythology times, I'll give you that. What do you want? Romance, I'll give you that. What do you want? Poems, I'll give you that. And flipping put the high fantasy in there as well.
Yeah.
He's got the gothic stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
The Mordor and how it looks and the type
mythology
of buildings and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's got the flipping Gollum. You could call that half human, half whatever the hell that thing is. Experimental
Frankenstein monster. Oh, mate, Gollum, mate.
You know what I mean?
To this day.
Remember?
I want to see Gollum in a Saw movie. That's what I want to see.
You know, one time I was dying, I was editing, and we took like 5 minutes just cooking Gollum.
I'm telling you, man, if Gollum was saying it right now, I wouldn't be able to look at him, bro.
Speaking about how many ways we could kill Gollum.
You gotta edit that in,
you know what it is with Gollum? He's a pitying creature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously, you've seen.
I felt bad because I rewatched the first film, and I saw him getting tortured. I was like, damn, they got my boy. But then again, I was like,
and then he snitches, and you're like, God damn, this is why we don't like you, bro.
This is why they got you.
This is why we don't like you. But no, so yeah, and then so now we have Tolkien. That's obviously inspired guys like George R.R. Martin. That's
many.
She will never say it, and she hasn't.
Who?
But she definitely inspired J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
I don't know why she doesn't admit to it.
I can't take us.
There's so many like things that are so similar in there.
Yeah.
And she just like, there's even a character called Dumbledore, but she's like, I had no influences by no inspirations. It's like it won't take away from your work if you say you do. Yeah. Like nothing George R. Martin does takes away from him being like, yeah, Tolkien was my hero.
The mentors and the wraiths.
Yeah, if anything, you respect the person more because you can look back their lineage of inspiration and be like, oh, he came.
It's like a family tree.
Yeah, and then Tolkien was a big fan of the guy that wrote Beowulf, and then you can find the Beowulf guy, and so on and so forth, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And like it just leads to this whole ecosystem of people being like, oh, I actually looked up to this guy, and they're like, oh yeah, you know. But anyways, whether she cares to admit it or not,
I think she's ruined her legacy at this point. Nobody respects her as a person. You can respect her writing, but as a person, like, yeah, mate.
Yeah, God knows. But yeah, so that is essentially, up until this point, fantasy as we know it. And I think a lot of the stories that I really like are like the chosen one.
Yeah.
Type of archetype.
Do you feel like you really wanted to be the chosen one?
Do I feel like I really wanted to be a chosen one?
Yeah.
Probably. I feel like everyone feels like a main character, no? In your own kind of way.
I don't think so.
But I feel like one thing that was kind of like got me. Let's say I like Harry Potter, which is kind of similar to like Anakin's kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is somebody coming to find you to tell you you're special.
Yeah. You think one day you're gonna get a knock on the door?
The life that you're living, bro. There's a whole different world. The people know your name.
Yeah.
You're famous.
Yeah.
You're a hero. You could just leave this life. And I'm like, God damn it, finally, bro. Finally, man. This is what I've been waiting for.
One day I'm gonna set this guy up so bad. I'm gonna write some. I'm gonna write some
a long trench coat and looking mysterious.
I'm gonna write some handwritten letter. Just leave your letters lying around in the house and make you do a treasure hunt. Oh. Whoa, easy, brother. Look at this guy. He does want to be the chosen one today.
Nah, yo, what you say was stressing me out, bro. I didn't know how to handle it.
You gotta clip this part.
Didn't know how to handle it. If you guys, for the ones listening,
bro, you just grabbed up the mic. Yeah, damn.
But nah, like, you know what? Brother. I might have to hire 17 guys in a trench coat to come to my funeral, just to make people feel like, what was he doing? What was this man doing behind the scenes? Maybe have them vanish in some smoke as well. Yeah,
vanish in smoke.
Just to get the family going around that.
And they're all like different races, all from around the world. Oh my days.
Maybe put prosthetics on a couple of them. That would be insane. Have them howl just before they put my body down.
Have a guy with like a flipping falcon on his shoulder. Oh my days.
That's what I was saying. You hear the falcon screeching as I go down. You know what I mean? That's what I want, man. Put some bit of mystery in my life. You know what I mean?
Tell you what, this is why I like doing a podcast with Shamaki. I find out his real true deep desires.
Listen, wait, if I'm not going to say it here, it's going to die with me. That's not what we want. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
That's what
so talking.
Yeah.
Talk a bit more about him.
You know what? I just found it quite interesting how he took it to another level of obviously proper making a language.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing.
One which you could, which has a specific way of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And enunciating the words. You have to say it correctly, otherwise you're saying different meanings. Like, damn, is it that serious?
Yeah.
I remember when I was writing, I had a little ecosystem going on in terms of a language.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was mainly like an English word, but like how would a Turkish guy say it? Is essentially what it was. So I had perfect, which was Persuch.
That's why I keep saying Constantinople,
Yeah, that, right. It was like, so it'd just be like, Persuch as perfect.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
But and then sometimes I'd find myself saying that like now. So clearly it was something that stuck. But
so let's talk about Tolkien and his influence on you. So I always like the first ever book I saw you even pick up was the Lord of the Rings book. I don't even know why.
Yeah.
But I just saw it in your yard and I was like, how's you reading this fat book? Even I was an avid book reader at that point. And I had never read something that fat.
You weren't serious, bro.
With a PH, you know? Yeah. So like, how did you get into it? Like, what inspired you to pick that up?
The movies.
So you watched the movies and you said, I gotta go
like,
grab that.
I said, this ain't enough.
Yeah.
I said, this ain't enough. I was like, where are they coming from? What's going on here? And then obviously I remember this girl in my school reading Harry Potter books.
Okay.
And it was, I think the 5th one was out at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like that. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I'll never read that. I mean, I don't know what she's doing. She's like, no, but it's actually really good. I'm like, give me a break. We've got movies for that.
Yeah.
Then I was looking at the movie, and the movie was done, and I was itching.
Yeah.
And I saw it. I was like, so, you know what? Let me. Then I thought it was gonna be like complicated and like big ass language and whatnot, but then it actually wasn't. And I think the first 3 chapters, honestly, was like the best opening to something. It was.
Which book was it? Which one?
The Fellowship.
Okay.
And like the beginning part of like just Bilbo and him disappearing. You're kind of like, what's going on with this old guy? Obviously, I didn't see The Hobbit, and the book came out before that. Then you would know about his character and this and that. But I was just like, okay, moving along, this ring that gets left behind named Gandalf. And I remember I was reading this at night, and it kind of shook me a little bit. And then he was like talking about the shadows of Mordor and this and that. And then he was talking about how this creature Gollum.
Yeah.
And then he basically says they caught this creature Gollum. And Frodo's like, okay, yeah, but what does this mean? Like, why are you telling me all this kind of stuff? And he's like, these dark riders, blah, blah, blah. There's some vicious, crazy, scary ass creatures. And basically they tortured him. And then he gave out the name Baggins, and he gave out the name Shire.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what? So you telling me they were coming like on the way?
Yeah.
And he's like this, yeah.
He checked his own address.
Yeah, he's like this, yeah. So they come to find the Baggins, and they come to the Shire. So you have to start getting prepared to leave.
You're getting moving, brother.
Yeah, get moving. I'm going to come for you. I'm going to pick you up, scoop you.
Just
you make your way to Rivendell.
How do you get told, yo, these guys that are coming to Halston right now?
And the way he was bringing up, he was like, they used to be these kings. And this now they're nothing. They're not even lifeless. They ride around these dark horses, big ass swords, and they only killed. There's no compromise with them. There is no, yo, bro, let's work together here.
Yeah, let's have a chat.
There is none of that. It's like, it's just straight sword. Check your body if you've got it. Then they're like, okay. They don't even seek information, you know.
No, mate, you know what I'll be trying to do? Let me show you some Somali breeze to hit it, bro.
Nah, they're not having
the reins.
You're expected to speak to them.
That Somali teammate, I'm gonna give him a tamoos real quick. Yeah, give him a nice cuppa.
Yeah, I mean, if they had faces,
yeah, you know,
surely you could. They ain't got. They
in their hoods.
They don't even have bodies. You know what I mean? So he says that they're coming after you, and then it builds this like suspense of like they're just around the corner, and then Gandalf doesn't come to scoop him, and he has to go to Rivendell by himself, and they're hiding from them and all this kind of stuff, and then they meet Aragorn to help them get there, and I was like, damn, wow,
one hell of a story so far.
One hell of a and it was just the first like 8 chapters.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was for me. Yeah, me, you know, as a kid, there's certain things that you think. That was cool, that was cool. Like, even as an adult now, I'm just like, yo, you know what? Like, I'm watching some films nowadays, and I just look at the action, and I was like, you know what? That was pretty slick. I can't lie. Yeah. Even on the writing scrap, I just saw him do a backflip and whip out a sword and all this.
Backflip beats anything.
Yeah, and then you have like the way Lord of the Rings films were, like the armor shining and sleek, and like sharp around the edges and all this. And you got the way the swords are like engraved and all this. You got like the rings, the jewelry, the mithril vest, all this stuff. I made a point here to make a note, like, how do you think of all these tools and equipment and how they look? Like, there's so many different genres of things that he just knocked out of the park by just writing about it. For sure. And like, he was drawing as well. That's the thing. So the guy was insane, man.
But you know, also was like kind of cool that he wasn't. I don't know. I think his family now are more gatekeeping than he was. But like, he would
share his notes and that.
Not only just share his notes, like people would draw stuff for him. Yeah. And they'll be like, the arm probably look like this. Like Smaug, people were drawing it. Yeah. And if you liked it, he would just canonize it. He'd be like, yeah, you know what? Yeah. This is good enough.
Let's put it in.
Bring it, put it in. And I think George kind of does that as well. Like people draw Aegon for him, and he was like, yo, this is a good looking bloody dragon. I'll take that. So then he would canonize it, and he kind of left it open to the world to like kind of imagine kind of how it was. But everybody knew they had their set kind of armor in the way that you were describing it. But then they were just visually like, how does that look? We had the fortune of seeing it in film on the silver screen, but like them, they were
to
just
imagine
like,
it.
Yeah, you had to imagine it, and or maybe get some notes or pictures, illustrations to be like, okay, this is how, you know. And kids were sitting in the basement just drawing what they felt like this was, you know, which is
like, that's something that really stuck with me, to make characters memorable. And you got all these different races as well. Like, how many different races he thought of? Like, how the hell did you think of a hobbit? Yeah, because you already got dwarves. Yeah, so you're already thinking along the design. You already got elves. Yeah, like, you're already thinking along the design. But why are you bringing out a whole different race that just These short guys.
Nobody knew of fantasy.
These short guys that are just hippies that are just smoking pipe.
Yeah.
They're just walking around barefoot. Yeah, and they're just living on the hills.
Yeah, and the holes.
How do you think of that?
Yeah,
like that,
it's wild.
and then make them a whole part of the story and make them the main bearers of the burden of the whole story. Like that's like that for me. That's very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Like he obviously was inspired by a lot, then added that thing onto it because now Hobbit is a species of like the fantasy,
whole other creature.
Yeah. For sure, it's up there with like fairies and stuff like that, you know.
If I saw a little Hobbit, bro, I've been doing that drop kick one time, bro.
They're just wild.
Yeah, like American football. Like American football.
None of that. But you know one thing that I fear.
That's a two pun right
I
there.
fear for the future generation.
Yeah.
The TikTok brain rot guys, which I am part of.
Why?
Because I feel like you see, for example, fantasy and the reason why Tolkien was so profound. The reason why fantasy has been profound for such a long time was because it was told orally, mainly. People were telling each other about it, blah, blah, blah. You take the book. The only way, like, I think it was Stephen Colbert that was saying it in such a way where he was like, he had nothing at home.
Yeah.
TV, nothing in the middle of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Nothing to do except those books. And he was like, he was so grateful for the fact that book was so immersive. In fact, with all of the stuff and poems and the tribes and he had a flipping appendix at the end with all the tribes and their history and the lineage and stuff like that. He was so thankful for all of that he had something to escape in. So as his life was going on, he knew certain things about his life, and like he'd be like, okay, I don't know what I was doing at 17 on a random day, but I knew where Sam and Frodo were on their journey, and like he was very much internalized. Whereas I feel like now it's like it's very hard for kids to really take something like that and run away with it. I feel like the last book that kind of had that kind of grasp was Harry Potter. That where people were waiting 12 a.m. for the next morning for the book to come out. There was queues just to hear her read the first chapter and all that kind of stuff. But that was before the advent of like what social media became. Yeah, the internet was still about, but it wasn't like what it is now.
You know what it is? Is live feeds. That's like things.
It's like nobody's. It's like everyone's like, oh, I want to detox my brain. I wanna come away from the screens. I want to do all of this stuff here, right? But then I'm like, yeah, you can do that by reading. Yeah. But they're like, but I don't want to read. Yeah. But I'm like, so how are you expecting to really detox yourself from the screens? Because right now, if you like, I can barely watch something in one now. Yeah. You know, my brain was through the roof. You know what I mean? I don't even know what it is. And now it's just sewage in there.
One of us. Oh, mate.
Yeah, so like...
You're one of the zombies in I Am Legend, huh?
One of those guys, fam. One of the Google Gobble guys. It's finished. So it's like when you read a book that's rich enough, got the right nutrients in the soil, then it can take you away. You know what I mean? So it's like... It's I guess in many ways a big solution to the problem right now that we have, because I feel like people aren't valuing stuff just as much, because it's like if you have a good favorite podcast and if you have a favorite movie now, and you see it on Netflix and you're like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Next week you're like, I'm ready to see the next best thing I've ever seen. You know what I mean? It's not like, wow, like I've just seen something, then you have to wait another year for another great movie to come out. Now it's like, streaming sites are like,
especially
here
when
it is.
Especially when they drop all the episodes at once.
All at once.
I don't like.
That's what you don't have time to. You don't have time to value
absorb it. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I drank through the bear. I'll be honest. So I don't know if
I purposely pace myself. Like I don't watch shows.
I mean, when I say drank through, I watch like maybe two episodes. Yeah. But like, even then, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. That's
what I mean, compared to like. Only at 6 o'clock on a Sunday is your show gonna come on, and you have to wait that whole time. You have to marinate, speak about it, blah, blah, then it comes on. But like now, it's going straight to demand. And then on top of that, kids are shorting it down on TikToks. And now you've seen all the best parts of it. And then there's a summary of the summary there, and then you're like, okay, this is brain rot right now.
Before we close off this episode, I want to touch a bit more on. So we've talked about how Tolkien covered all those different fictional historical themes that all the different cultures have brought together, right? But you haven't talked about some of the philosophy that he drops in his Lord of the Rings worlds.
Yes.
Things like grief, for example. Things like we've talked about grief before.
Yeah.
Like even just like humor as well. Like some of the lines that he would drop, like you can see like he trying to put some humor in there.
Yeah.
One of the things I was watching the Fellowship of the Ring again, and when bloody Gandalf comes in late, I was like, "Sharks, mate, this is all you." And when he said a wizard arrives precisely when he means to, I said, "This has got sharks written all over it." Yeah,
I was about to drop that to you today.
Bloody hell, mate. But yeah, I was thinking about grief. So, like for example, when Boromir dies, they're obviously they're getting rushed. Boromir just died to save them after he'd shown a bit of distastefulness. Yeah. And Gandalf's already gone, right? Gandalf gone already? Yeah, he's already gone. So then, obviously spoilers, but yeah, Boromir dies. Well, anyway, then the hobbits at that point they've gotten a bit closer to Boromir.
Yeah.
Like, apart from Frodo, obviously he's worried about the ring and that. Yeah. But the other hobbits, you can see that they were playing with Boromir and all that.
Yeah.
Like little youths, like.
Yeah.
But anyways, and then there's one line where Boromir dies, and then these guys are like, was it Boromir? I think it's when Gandalf falls. Sorry, Gandalf falls, and he dies, and then Boromir is like, "Yo, man, like just give him some time to mourn for pity's sake about the hobbits." Yeah, and then Aragorn's like, "Nah, bro, you gotta keep it stepping, innit?" Yeah. He's like just look at the bigger picture, like just keep it stepping. Like, they can grieve, but these guys, we're still getting chased up from there's these orcs on us right now. Like, it's like these different little themes as well that he puts out throughout his books, where it's really deep about like, okay, something bad happens, someone dies, like what are you gonna do? You're just gonna sit there and cry about it when there's a war coming, there's a more conflict to come, and you gotta be ready for that. So you gotta keep it stepping, keep it moving. But that's just like one aspect of it. And obviously he's covering grief from one way, but then Boromir dies, and then they show how he's like they put him on the boat, and he goes over the waterfall, so they show how they're grieving for him in that way. And then even the departure from when the hobbits go one way, and then was it Frodo and Sam go one way, and then Aragorn, Legolas is like, "What, you don't mean to follow them?" Like that, there's a bit of like a departure there, like a goodbye. Like the Fellowship is splitting apart now, so, and like you as the reader or listener or the viewer has to come to terms with that as well. Like we've been with them for the whole show, and now all of a sudden they're going to be separated apart. What happens, especially towards the end? Like it leaves with a real cliffhanger, and
especially Frodo without having the guide. He had Aragorn as cover.
What the hell?
Gandalf as cover. Like, what's he gonna do?
What the hell is Frodo and Sam gonna do in the middle of nowhere? But you can see like how they've grown from the beginning. They're
of
like,
course.
Man, I guess I gotta do it now. I gotta do it myself.
Like, they all realize their responsibility and duty.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Like
exactly.
they realize we have to get this thing done with or without them. It's better without. As they realize, because he's seeing all the torment that the ring can bring, and Boromir trying to, nab it off him, and then Aragorn's like, we can't follow them. We've got two people that are taken hostage.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like we got to back boys. Them.
And we got what do you call it? Appreciate the fact that they're small little hobbits, but we believe in them as well. They can do their job, and we can.
That's the main thing, really.
Yeah. So that's like there's so many different themes within the book. Like this is fiction. This is not a self-help book. It's telling you all these different things, and you're hearing it in an interesting way with a storyline and characters that you grow attached to, and all these things. And
you definitely see it more as well. Just to say it in the book, in the book he proper goes into like how they felt after Gandalf died. And even with Boromir, like they put a lot of like the heads and stuff like that of the orcs around them and their swords and weapons, just so they were like when their family or whoever. Because that river goes towards his home. So they were like, hopefully they see him. And when they see him, they'll see that he's surrounded by all his enemies and stuff like that. And to them, that was their highest honor, you know what I mean? He went out fighting.
And that's what I would say, like, the best self-help books are the ones that, for me, they give like real life case studies of things that happen. And like they show, like they tell a story about like, oh, this person went through this is how they dealt with it. Like those are the only self-help books that stick with me. And,
of course.
But you get that in fiction, and you get that in a much more interesting way, in a different world from where we can still relate it to a world. So it's a lot more fun, I guess, to absorb it and enjoy it.
Definitely. I mean, even like, I guess the stuff you were saying, even about grief, such a different point. But like, I remember there was somebody talking about a lot of guys out on road. A lot of them dealing with like PTSD, a lot of them dealing with grief. But like they can't really talk about it. the stuff they're involved in or what their friend died for, what they did is just like, you know what I mean, wild. Some of them get to a point where they just keep it stepping and they get to a point where they can actually like stab someone and then they're okay with it. Yeah. Because it's just like, it was either him or me and whatnot. But some of them, like the first nights going through it, are just like seeing the same thing, traumatized and it's wild, you know what I mean? I was saying, that was just a little interesting thing you could take in real life for grief and stuff like that, how people deal with the onset of being in that lifestyle and how they deal with it. But no, fantasy, man. What a genre, eh?
Indeed.
Genre and a half.
Easily my favorite, I'd say.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, there's a lot of weird and wacky fantasy, which has messed up the pool a little bit. Yeah. But there's a lot of gems in there. Yeah,
so we're going to keep on trying to read some more fiction books and recommending them to you. But I'd say for this episode, give it that first Lord of the Rings book a go.
Yeah, that was amazing. Don't let the chunkiness of the book deter you.
Go through it slowly.
Maybe even go download on your phone. Yeah. You know, just read the first 2 chapters and then that will be enough, I think, to hook anybody. But that's been us. I hope you guys enjoyed our little recap of fantasy and where it came about and all that good stuff. And please make sure to like, subscribe, comment. All of that stuff helps. And
Sharks disappears, look for the clues.
Yeah, damn right.
Saw an episode somewhere.
Absolutely. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening to the Papertrails podcast. If you like this episode, please leave a review, comment, like, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on all our socials.
Keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. See you at work.